Okay, good morning. We are Hilchos Treifos Siman Lamed Tet. We are in Seif Zayin. Okay, so now we're getting into the real thick of the Sircha as we started, and we're in Zayin. Im Nisracha Ha'una o Ha'uma the Gorgeret. So if you have one of the upper or lower lobes, and there's a Sircha, you have a Sircha that's connecting from the lung, any one of the lobes, to the trachea. Or lechazeh, or it goes from, and again remember, a sircha is basically like a long string adhesion that could be very thick, it could be very, could take up like a plain area surface, like a piece of paper, or it could be like a very thin linear line. Okay, but that's basically it's okay like that, and it's going from one place to another. Again, we mentioned, and we'll see again, Sircha Tuluya. You can have it just hanging, and obviously it's connected and it gets ripped, it'll look like it's hanging. But anyways, generally it goes from one place to another, especially if it's a problem. So for Treifos. So then another place is, or it can go lechazeh, to the rib cage, or lishamnunit al halev, or there's a layer of fat. We'll just learn it for right now. So we mentioned before that the heart has actually we didn't discuss it much, we're going to say it now. The heart is inside a fibrous casing, pocket, sac, called a pericardium. Now there's actually two main layers. The outer layer that's like really like a sac, and then there's the inner membrane, which is much more intact to the heart, and sometimes there's fluid in between them, and that it would be in between. Now the inner layer that's closer to the heart, technically it really could be divided into two layers. Okay, I'm not sure if that part is all relevant, but you often will have fat inside the sac, the kis, halev, and you're also going to have, there's also shamuni fat on the outside of the pericardium, outside the outer sac around the heart. So presumably we're talking about the shamnunit on the outside, because there's a sircha going from the lung to the shamnunit. So one would assume, doesn't have to be, can go through it, through the sac, but okay. L'shamnunit halev, o l'kiso, or it goes to the kis, halev. Now I don't know what girsa you have, but I have. I think everyone has. O letarpash halev, or to the tarpash halev. What's tarpash? It's also the same sac. In other words, don't spend time looking. The kis halev and the tarpash halev is the exact same thing. There's no difference. I looked in the Beit Yosef. Some of the Rishonim will have tarpash halev and some will have kis halev. No one says kis and tarpash. I didn't see it inside. Rabban David said that there's a Rishon that has, it's written, I think, kis halev, shehu tarpash halev. Right. So, but it's the same thing. Okay. The tarpash hakaved. Now tarpash halev, I don't know what I just said. Tarpash halev, which I said before, that's pericardium. It's basically like a fibrous membrane, right? Fibrous connective tissue, whatever, made of collagen. Tarpash hakaved, that's the diaphragm that we're all familiar with. Without this, you can't breathe. This tarpash hakaved is the, remember, a lot of words in Chazal, they have multiple meanings. We saw simpon, we saw kaneh. Those can all be windpipes. They could be blood vessels. It could be arteries. It could be veins. Okay, tarpash hakaved is the diaphragm. That's right. That's made up of, actually also has some fibrous tissue, and it's also made up of a muscle, right? We're all familiar. Fine. O the tarpash haininusa, or Now this again refers back to a similar to like we had by the Kis Halev. This is the Kis of the Irinuta de Varda, the inside lobe. Now again, remember we discussed the Kis Halev is completely one solid Kis all the way around with no openings for important reasons, biology, but for the Irinuta de Varda, the sac is open. It's like it's not completely closed. I mean, when it's lying over the Varda, it looks like it's basically closed, but there's an opening. And the Bodek, when he checks the lungs, also checks, he pulls it out and checks for Sirchas and puts it back in. Shehu Sof Tarpash Halev, which comes and reaches the Tarpash Halev. Right? That's the sac, the pericardium. O L'Rechem, or to the womb. Okay? O, okay, here's another O. What is this? Le'el Mada Shekorin Moliga. And some people have a Reish and some have a Daled. Some have Mara and some have Mada. Different girsas. And that's what we call Moliga. That's also, again, basically it's anything that's not normal. Really, a Sircha going anywhere that's not to one of the normal places that we previously learned, that was Kesidron. This is just more examples of Shalok Kesidron. So again, knowing exactly which organ we're talking about is not really crucial because it's not to mention we're generally even strict with Kesidron, but okay. So it's not clear what this is. Again, it seems to be from one of the Rishonim. He says, I'll just read my versions. El Mada Moliga is Rechem. And you can look in the Beis Yosef. So here it's fair to say O means, and another way of saying the same word twice. So let's assume it's the same thing. All right. Anyways, O L'Simpon Hayored Ben Shtei Arugos, or down, I believe this is one of the, I'm not sure, maybe one of the blood vessels, between, I don't think it's referring to the windpipe, but whatever, it's, okay, I'm not sure 100%. The arugos is the backside of the lung. You basically have two arugos, because when you look at it from the ventral side, again, obviously it matters if it's all condensed or if it's inflated, right? Deflated or inflated. You'll see it better if it's inflated. But basically, when you look at the lung straight on from what you might call the front side or the ventral side, you see all the demarcations and you see clearly the different lobes. When you look at it from the back, the ventral side, the dorsal side, right? By the spine, from the spine, when you look at it from that side, the lung basically looks like one solid piece on one side and one solid, basically two solid lobes. For the most part, unless you start to see over or you know what you're looking for, if you just look straight on from the middle view, it basically looks like just two arugot. So that's why it's called that. Oh, lekane halev, or to the artery. Oh, leshamnunit. I'm not sure. Very possibly. Just I don't know for sure. Oh, leshamnunit hasimponot, or to the fat that's on one of the vessels. Oh, lekaveh, to the liver itself. Treifa. So all these cases are a treifa because they are shalok kesidron. Va'afilu hi devuka le'echad mimkomos halalu bli pilush. Even if it started, this is not just a one-line sircha. This is like more of a plainer, piece of paper type of sircha. Blanking on the best way to describe it, but basically, it's a sheet of sircha going from one edge to the. So we learned that the Ramah in particular is mekel. If it's between the unos, as long as it started out from the middle of the lung where it's all attached, And as long as it continues and continues, then we're more mekel. As they're saying, it's all from how it naturally grew. It's not from this makkah that hit it by itself. If it was just a makkah from one random spot, then that's where you would have an unconnected, separate, independent type of adhesion or sircha. So we're saying even if there's no pilush, there's no break. The sircha is on one of these other organs, but it's attached. It's continuous all the way as a sheet of sircha, of adhesion, all the way to the middle of the lung where it all grows out from. Still, if it's in one of these places, it's a treifa. Okay. Haga. V'yish mikilin ima unos el yonos asmuchas b'gargeres dvukos mamish b'gargeret v'im b'neihem chiluk klal shiyuchal lahachnis etzba b'neihem. Okay. So this is one kula of the Rama, that even though we said going to the trachea is a problem, if there's no break and it's all connected as one solid adhesion from the top of the unos, where it's normal, where it grows out from, so then in that case, if it goes to the grogeret and it's all connected, that's okay, that's its normal growth, and that's as long as there's no break. And so here, the Rama uses the word etzba. It sounds like as long as the opening is less than an etzba, it's okay. And right now I'm blinking. Where did I see that there's a discussion if it's etzba or even a needle point, like from the original source of this halacha. I don't know if I can find it right now. Okay, we'll just leave that as a question on what the minimum is. It an etzba or just any break whatsoever? No, I'm blinking where I saw that. It's also mentioned in the Ber Hativ, but okay, where it mentions the word an amachat. So it could be, I think the Shach also discusses this. It could be, it just needs to be a machat. In other words, any division whatsoever will ruin this kula. Okay, let's go on. V'chein im hayu ha'unos o ha'umos devukin legamre. So now, if it's completely touched from between the lobes, any one of the lobes, in its normal order, dvukin legamre mirosha natsofan l'shuman hayored bein ha'umos, and it even reaches to the shuman. It could also be okay. V'chen yamaita korea dvuka b'shidra, or to the spine in the back, in the dorsal side. Ki omrim shederach rabiteu bekach. This is its normal way it grows. Ve'ein ze sircha, and this is not called a sircha, at least not a sircha that makes it a treifa. Right? Not the technical term sircha for halachic reasons. Ve'ein lahatir kol zeh v'lo sheilat chacham u'mumche more haraos. And for these kulas, though, you need to make sure you get shimush from a proper shochet. Okay. So you learn exactly what exactly is the Masorah of what to be makel on or not. And this is bishar makomos ein chiluk bein dava kulo o lo. And this kula doesn't, just because, don't learn from other places, because other places you can have a real sircha, and it's dik sircha, whatever the sircha is, and in other places it might be mutter, or other places we learn to kabi aser, but you can't be madama, you can't learn from one area to another. Okay. Just to point out, in general, the slaughterhouses are going to be on the more machmer side when there's different shitos. This yesh mekilin of the Rama, so it's not always clear when the Rama says yesh mekilin or yesh omrim if he's coming to agree or disagree. So here, when you look in it's a machloket among the poskim how to understand the dat of the Shulchan Aruch. If he's also mekel with the first case we mentioned. Kaf HaChaim quotes the Zivchei Tzedek, who says the minhag by Sfardim is to say it's a treifa and not to be mekel like the Rama. But anyways, let's okay. In general, we're machmer anyway with sirchas, so it's not a big nafkamina. Okay, let's go to Kaf Hey. Did I skip some? Okay, let's go to Chet. Chet. Sircha hayotza mehareya. Now, if you have a sircha and it comes out of the reya, vihi, right? That's what we're learning. Everything we're learning here is about the reya. We'll see later on other stuff. Vihi teluya she'ena devuka l'shum makom kshera. So this I think we learned already. If you have a single sircha that's just hanging from the reya, it's not attached to anything, right? You didn't break it. That's how it grew. So then it's a kshera. Ve'ena tzricha bedika, and there's nothing, and you don't even have to do a bedika. Nowadays, bedika you might think is separating or feeling it and seeing if you can get it to move away from the lung. But no, here it means even putting it with water or a feather or anything. You don't have to put it in water or see if there's a hole. You don't have to check it at all. You don't have to blow it up. It's all good.
What do you mean it's not connected to Luya?
It's connected on one side, but it's not connected on the other side to anything.
Oh.
It's like a hanging string of membrane.
Or something like that.
Exactly. Like a skin tag for whatever, as an analogy, but okay. Definitely, yes. It's not like skin material though, but yes. Haga v'sircha teluya hayotzet min habua treifa. But we learned that if it's a sircha that comes out of a bua, that we learned a few sifim ago, that's tarti l'reyusa. And when you have a tarti l'reyusa, so it depends what kind of reyus and who the posek is, but then it could turn it into a treifa. So this is one example that we saw. That yes, it's a treifa if you have a sircha that's hanging, or perhaps as an analogy like a skin tag, and it's hanging from a swelling or a bubble. So even though one single bubble by itself is usually not a problem, when you put the two together, then it's a treifa and finish, game over. And mitinre, but if it's on a hard mass, it's hard inside, it's crusted, it's not like liquidy inside. So then, if the string, the sircha is hanging from the tinri, that's a kshera. Okay. I think I'm going to go on. Yeah, now, I think it's obvious, but the Shach points out that even though Laman da Amar is sircha below nekev, so it's not possible, right? One of the assumptions is what's wrong with the sircha? It's not possible, right? It's stated as one of the mandamrim, ein sircha below nekev. You can never have a sircha without a hole. So he clarifies. That statement means an attached sircha that goes from one end to another end. Because when a hole is created, by definition, or the natural growth or healing process of a hole, by definition, will grow a sircha, attaching to wherever that hole was attaching to. I'm not exactly sure which which end comes first, but that's how it grows. But and the nekev is a treifa, exactly. But you won't have, it's not normal, you won't have a sircha teluya growing from a nekev. It's when there's it'll just grow from natural growth from the moisture or the rear, or saliva is the expression, from the outer layer or membrane of the organ, or from, in our case, the lung.
It's not from the shot that the sircha could be completely connected to the, so instead it's not connected to another one.
Yeah, exactly. If it has to be connected, one end for sure is connected, and one end is for sure not connected. Yeah. Yeah, if it's a thick sircha, then that whole thick, on one end, the whole thickness could be attached. But that's what you're saying. Yeah, okay. Let's go to Tet. Sircha shehi mi makom lamakom be'una. Okay, so now, if you have a sircha that goes from one place to another, you have one lobe, and there's a sircha within a lobe. It's not going to a different lobe, right? Every siman are kind of building on each other. It doesn't go from... Right, okay, so here you have a sircha that goes from one area to another area on the same lobe. O be'uma atzma, or whether it's its own caudal lobe or cranial lobe, upper or lower, its own. Una also has to do with the. Anyway, una sounds like an ear, and uma from a mother. If that's that kind of lobe is another way to define it. But anyways, we just call it una and uma. Dina kedin sircha teluya. If you're within one lobe, then that is a din of sircha teluya. Hagav v'davka she'ena sircha k'tzara mibesar hareya kashenochin hareya. Okay, so this is a little difficult to understand without seeing it. So hopefully we'll get to see this. So what are we saying here? The only time we allow it, basically the sircha has to be, I don't know if the right way to say it, has to be long enough and not too tight and too short. The only time we allow it to be, remember, sircha teluya is a kula, it's mutter, it's kshera. So therefore, when you have it, he says, it's only okay when it's not too short. So that, or it's not shorter than the flesh of the reya when you blow it up. If it's too short, if the sircha is too short and you end up blowing up the lung, and the sircha is not long enough to follow with the inflated lung, because the lung grows when you inflate it, but the sircha doesn't grow with it, so that's a problem. And it ends up making it mikamet, or pulls on it. Shrink's not the right word, not shrivel. It makes creases, it pulls, creases of pulling, right? And it doesn't go up, it doesn't follow nicely with kishar hareya, the rest of the reya. So that's a treifa, even if it's on the same lobe. Or a sircha teluya, regular sircha teluya, but when you blow up the lung, guess what also blows up with it? The sircha teluya. No. The sircha inflates. That's a problem. Yeah. So that's a problem. Or anytime you have the sircha teluya, you check, and you see if looks like there's a makkah, a bruising, something broken. If it looks like there was a makkah, it's a problem, it's a treifa. It's a big problem. Because if there's a makkah, we're afraid that caused a hole, and that hole caused, normally a sircha teluya is not caused by a hole, but it still could be. So, but the phrase of ein sircha b'lo nekev, that only applies from an adhesion that's attached on both ends. But you could still sometimes have a sircha teluya and it'll be from a hole. Or the other issue that we mentioned before is when you inflate it, that means that there was a hole by definition. Because the only way it's going to get inflated is air is going through the skin of the flesh or the membrane of the lung, and it's going into the sircha. Okay. So let's go on. Yud. Out of time, huh? Fine. We will. Fine. So tomorrow we'll finish the main parts of sircha, and checking and feeling, and then we'll stop. We're going to take we'll take